The last train to nowhere. It was a cold October evening when Daniel Gray found himself standing on a forgotten railway platform, surrounded by fog so thick it seemed to breathe. The sign above the cracked station arch read Eastwell Junction, though no such name appeared on any map. The lamps along the platform flickered with a weak, dying glow, and the silence that hung in the air felt almost alive, as if the night itself was listening. Daniel had no memory of how he got there. His last recollection was of sitting in his apartment, watching the city lights tremble through the rain-streaked window, thinking about all the things he had lost: his father, his job, and the woman who had once promised to stay. Now somehow he was here, clutching a worn leather suitcase and a ticket with no destination printed on it. Just one word: nowhere. He laughed bitterly, a ticket to nowhere fitting. Still, something inside him whispered to wait. So he did. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, until, in the distance, he heard the faint metallic rumble of wheels against tracks. The sound grew louder, closer, until the fog trembled and parted, revealing a train that looked as though it had been built in another century. Black iron, golden trim, and windows that shimmered with ghostly light. When it stopped, the doors slid open with a hiss and Daniel hesitated. Inside, a conductor stood tall, pale, and wearing a uniform that seemed older than time. His face was unreadable, but his eyes held a strange kindness. "Ticket, please," the conductor said softly. Daniel handed it over. The man glanced at it and gave a slow nod. "You're right on time," he murmured. "Welcome aboard the Midnight Line." The interior of the train was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Velvet seats, brass lamps, and polished wood gleamed under the soft glow of candlelight. But there was something else, a silence beneath the silence. A feeling that the train wasn't just moving through space, but through memory itself. Only a few passengers sat scattered throughout the carriage, an old woman knitting with silver thread. A young boy staring out the window as if he could see another world. A soldier in faded uniform holding a photograph close to his chest. Each of them looked lost. Not in place, but in time. Daniel sat down by the window. The train jolted forward, and outside the landscape began to move, but it wasn't countryside or city. It was a collage of moments. His father teaching him how to ride a bike. The day he left home for college. The night his lover said goodbye under a streetlight. They flashed by like film reels, each memory more vivid than the last. He turned to the conductor, who now stood nearby, watching the passengers quietly. "What is this place?" Daniel asked. "This train," the conductor replied, "travels where no map can follow. It takes people not where they want to go, but where they need to go." Daniel frowned. "And where do I need to go?" The conductor smiled faintly. "That depends on what you're ready to leave behind." The words echoed in his mind as the train sped faster. Through the glass, Daniel saw himself sitting at a desk, arguing with his boss, walking through empty streets after losing his job, drowning in regret. Then another image appeared, his father's face, proud yet sad, the night before he died. "I never said goodbye," Daniel whispered. "No one ever truly does," the conductor said softly, "but you can still remember him with peace instead of pain." As the journey went on, the passengers began to disappear one by one. The old woman vanished after finishing her silver thread. The soldier dissolved into light after whispering, "I forgive you." Even the boy by the window smiled and faded like morning mist. Daniel realized that each of them had found what they came for: closure. When Daniel was the last one left, the conductor approached. "We've reached the end of the line." Outside, the fog cleared, revealing a field bathed in gentle dawn light. Birds rose from the grass, and a small wooden bridge stretched toward the horizon. Daniel stood up, feeling the weight in his chest finally lift. "So, this is it?" The conductor nodded. "You can stay or you can cross. The choice is yours, but remember, no train runs forever." Daniel took a deep breath. He looked once more at the empty carriage, at the seat where the boy had sat, at the knitting needles left behind, at the echoes of all the lost souls who had traveled before him. Then he smiled for the first time in years. "Thank you," he said. The conductor tipped his hat. "Safe travels, Mr. Gray." Daniel stepped out of the train. The air was warm, the light soft. As he walked toward the bridge, the train behind him began to fade, the sound of its whistle stretching into the distance like a farewell song. And when he finally reached the middle of the bridge, he stopped, closed his eyes, and whispered, "I'm ready." When he opened them again, he was standing in his apartment, morning sunlight spilling through the curtains. The city was alive outside: cars, voices, life. On his table lay the same leather suitcase, empty except for a small piece of silver thread. Daniel smiled, realizing he had been given not a dream, but a second chance, a journey through nowhere that led him back to himself. And outside, far away in the distance, if you listened closely, you could almost hear the whistle of a train fading into eternity, the last train to nowhere, carrying the souls who were lost, but not forgotten. Part 2. The Man Who Came Back from Nowhere. When Daniel opened his eyes that morning, the world felt both familiar and strange, like a song he had once known, but forgotten how to sing. The morning light fell across his floor in golden stripes. The city hummed below his window. And yet, he felt as though he had awakened after 1,000 years. The silver thread lay beside him on the nightstand. It gleamed faintly, almost pulsing, as if alive. He ran his fingers over it and felt a warmth travel through his skin, a quiet reminder that what had happened wasn't a dream. Somewhere, beyond the edge of time, the midnight line still traveled through the fog, carrying souls toward peace. Daniel stood, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in years, he didn't see a man broken by the past. He saw someone who had been lost but found his way home. He decided to step outside. The streets were soaked in rain, reflecting the sky like cracked glass. People hurried by, holding umbrellas, rushing to their destinations. No one noticed him Or perhaps everyone did. In the quiet way strangers notice something they can't name. His steps felt lighter, his heart beat calmer. Every sound, the rumble of cars, the laughter of children, the distant siren carried meaning. At a small cafe on the corner, he ordered black coffee. The waitress, a young woman with tired eyes, smiled faintly. "Rough morning?" she asked. Daniel chuckled. "You could say that. Or maybe the best one I've had in years." He sat by the window, watching people pass. Each face outside seemed like a mystery, every one of them living their own invisible story. And then, in the glass reflection, he saw someone sitting behind him, a man in an old conductor's uniform, reading a newspaper. For a heartbeat, Daniel froze. When he turned, the seat was empty. Only the faint scent of rain and iron remained. He smiled. "Still watching me, aren't you?" he whispered. Days turned into weeks. Daniel began to change, quietly but completely. He started helping strangers, small things at first. Holding doors, buying coffee for the homeless, visiting his elderly neighbor who lived alone. Each act, no matter how small, felt like another step away from the shadows he once lived in. He began painting again, something he hadn't done since his father's death. The first painting he made was of a train disappearing into fog. He called it The Journey Home. The second was of a silver thread hanging between two stars. One evening, while walking along the river, he saw a young boy sitting alone on a bench, crying. The boy reminded him of the child on the train, the one who had stared out the window in silence. Daniel sat beside him. "What's wrong?" he asked. "My mom's sick," the boy whispered. "They said she might not come home." Daniel's heart ached, but his voice was gentle. "Sometimes people go on long journeys, even if we can't follow right away, but they never really leave us." The boy looked up. "Do you believe that?" "I know that," Daniel said softly, "because I've seen the train that takes them." The boy frowned, confused, but smiled a little too. That was enough. Months passed, and Daniel's life began to bloom again. He met people who saw the quiet strength behind his eyes. He fell in love not with a person at first, but with living itself. And one day he met her, Emma, a woman who worked in the same art gallery where he displayed his paintings. She had the kind of smile that could stop time. When she first saw the journey home, she stood before it for a long time. "It feels like it's moving," she said. Daniel smiled. "Maybe it is." They talked for hours that day about life, memory, and the strange way loss teaches you to love deeper. She told him about losing her brother years ago. He told her about a train that doesn't exist on any map. And though she didn't understand completely, she listened, and that was enough. Years went by, and the midnight line became nothing more than a memory. Until one night. Daniel, now older, sat by his window with Emma asleep beside him. The city was quiet. A soft fog rolled through the streets below. And then, Faintly, in the distance, the sound of a whistle. He froze, heart pounding. He stood, walked to the window, and peered into the mist. There, at the edge of sight, he saw it. A black train gliding silently across the sky, its windows glowing like stars. A figure stood at the door, the conductor tipping his hat. Daniel smiled and nodded. He understood. It wasn't time yet, but one day it would be. When his journey was done, when his heart had given all it could, the train would return for him. He returned to bed, placed his arm around Emma, and whispered, "When the train comes, I'll be ready." Outside, the whistle faded into the night, leaving behind only silence and the faint glimmer of a silver thread drifting in the moonlight. And so the man who once boarded the last train to nowhere learned that every destination, even the darkest, leads somewhere after all to the place where love, memory, and peace meet beyond the edge of time. For every lost soul, there is a train waiting in the fog, and one day we all find our way home.